Okay, so in the last class, we saw the notion of differentiability for the function of single variable, right? So what we saw, so the increment in the function can always be written as some constant times h plus eta h, where eta, sorry, not eta, yeah, eta goes to 0 as h tends to 0. We saw that this was the case always, or another way of writing this is ah plus order of h, right? So we saw whenever a function is differentiable at some point, then this will hold, and whenever this will hold, the function will be differentiable. So we have this notion for differentiability in R. Okay, so we want to generalize this concept for Rn, or in particular for R2, but keeping in mind what are the things that I want, that if my function is differentiable, then it is always continuous there, right? And what are the things I also want, that if the function is differentiable at some point, then a partial derivative must also exist. So we will see what how should we define the differentiability. So we'll use the same concept more or less. You see, let me write. So differentiability for functions of two variables. So let's see how this concept can be generalized to several variables, or in particular two variables. So it's very simple. Again, the same logic. Let suppose I have some function f be a function from D to R of two independent variables x comma y. Okay, and definitely let us take some point. Instead of taking a comma b, you can also take x comma y. So let x comma y belongs to the domain, or be the interior point, be an interior point you can take a comma b also if you are not very much convinced with x comma y. Just a minute. Yeah, you can take a comma b also. Okay, doesn't matter. That is up to you. Okay, if you're not very much convinced, let's take a comma b. Okay, leave it. I hope you have no problem taking x comma y. You can also take a comma b. Again I'm repeating. Now, to talk about differentiability, I have to know about the increment. So to talk about increment, I need a point close to this, or some point near this. Okay, so let me call that point is, so suppose, so because this is an interior point of D, by the definition of interior point, there will exist some neighborhood containing this and inside this. That means this is your domain D and this is the interior point of D. You will get some neighborhood containing this point. Okay, by the definition of an interior point. So suppose N is some neighborhood of the point x comma y. I am supposing this. And suppose, because I want to talk about the increment of the function, so x plus h comma y plus k belongs to that neighborhood. So I am incrementing x by h and y by k. So I can talk about the increment in the function as well. So this is the point x comma y, And suppose this might be the point x comma x plus h comma y plus k. So I can talk about the increment. So the difference f of x plus h comma y plus k minus fxy, which is noted like this, is called the increment of f. So I am first defining what I mean by increment. So what is the meaning of increment here? F of x plus h minus fx. And what is the meaning of increment here? This is the meaning of increment. F of x plus h y plus k minus fxy. This is the meaning of the term increment here. Okay. So now once I have talked about the increment, I can talk about the differentiability. So now we will define the function. So try to understand the definition and please relate with this one. So the function f is said to be differentiable. The function f is said to be differentiable at the point x comma y if this happens. What happens? The increment can be expressed in the form ah plus bk. You see, I am just generalizing this concept. Here I have just ah, but here I have two things, h and k. So what I am taking, ah plus bh, and then some eta h, so plus eta 1h plus eta 2k. Did you understand my point? I have generalized the above definition. Understood this part? Yeah. So I have just generalized the notion of differentiability of single variable to multivariable. Okay. So I should write all those things where what is this a and b? There are some numbers, right? Where a comma b are constants. That means independent of constants, independent of h and k. A and b are independent of h and k. You may write constants independent of h and k. And what are this eta 1 and eta 2? And eta 1 comma eta 2 are functions of h and k. So they depend both on h as well as on k. They both depend upon h and k, and such that they both go to 0 as h comma k tends to 0 0. So this is the notion of differentiability generalized to multivariable. So there we had ah plus eta h only, but we are taking k into consideration again, right? So the function is said to be differentiable at x comma y if the increment can be expressed in the form this, where a and b are constants independent of h and k, and eta 1 comma eta 2 are functions of h and k, such that they both, it is not like that eta 1 depends upon only h. No, it also depends upon k. Eta 1 and eta 2 are functions of h and k, such that they both go to 0 as h comma k tends to 0 comma 0. So you see, I have generalized the same concept as done above. And you also remember one thing which I have told you in the last class. If you copy this down, convince yourself, and you remember that AH was represented D by using the symbol DH, was represented using the symbol DF, and this DF was called the differential. So here also we will call this part as the differential. We'll call this part as the differential, and this was expressed as as an order of h. We'll also try to express this as order of some h and k. Let's see how. So yes, so this part is called as the differential of f and is denoted like this, and this can be expressed using the triangle inequality, all those things. This tends to 0 as h comma k tends to 0 0. So this part can be written as order of this thing, and thus the the increment can be expressed in this form, differential plus order of this thing. So this is the notion of differentiability in R2. So once we have the concept of differentiability, we want one important thing, that suppose if I am supposing that a function is differentiable at some point, what I need that the function should also be continuous at that point. Otherwise our definition is of no use. And secondly, I also want that if my function is differentiable at some point, then I want both the partial derivatives to exist at that point. And that is your next theorem. Let's see. So the theorem, which is also called as a necessary condition of differentiability, you may also write that down. Necessary condition of differentiability. That means if my function is differentiable, then the following things will happen. Let D be a subset of R2, okay, and F be a function from D to R, be a function of two independent variables x and y. So, and suppose I have a comma b, the interior point of D, where I can talk about differentiability. B and interior point of the domain. Okay. Now what I am assuming that the function is differentiable at a comma b. Let f be differentiable at the point a comma b. What I am assuming that the function is differentiable at the point a comma b, then the two things will happen as guaranteed by the definition. We'll see how. Number one, the first thing, if my function is differentiable at a comma b, then f is continuous at a comma b. So we will be then satisfied with the definition. And number two, both the partial derivatives at a comma b exist. That means fx at a comma b and fy at a comma b both exist. So then we will be satisfied with the definition. You will see that when the function is differentiable at a comma b, both of this holds. Both of the condition holds. See, from exams point of view, these theorems are not important, but still I will show you the proof because you should understand everything. So let's do the proof of this theorem. So I am assuming that f is differentiable at a comma b. Okay. So what I know, the increment can be expressed in that manner. Let's see, let's write it down. So for some point, a plus h comma b plus k, for some point belonging to the neighborhood n of a b, you can write that n is the neighborhood of a comma b. We have, because the function is differentiable, this should hold. The increment, this is the increment. The increment should be expressed in the form, I write it here, ah plus bk plus eta 1h plus eta 2k, and where eta 1 and eta 2 go to 0, eta 1 comma eta 2 both go to 0, as h comma k both goes to 0. Because the function is differentiable, this condition will hold according to our definition. Because the function is differentiable at a comma b, the increment can be expressed in this manner according to our definition. So let's take limit both sides. So taking limit, let me call this as suppose 1, taking limit on both sides of 1 as h comma k goes to 0 comma 0. Let's see what happens. We are taking in equation 1, we are taking limit as h comma k tends to 0 0. Let's see what are we remaining with. Try to understand my point. So I'm taking limit on the left hand side. So on the left hand side what I have, limit h comma k tends to 0 comma 0. What is in the left hand side? The increment, that is this. What is the right hand side? What is the right hand side if I take the limit h comma k tends to 0 comma 0? When I take h comma k tends to 0 comma 0 on the right hand side, this goes to 0. Why? This is just a finite number, some number, and this h is going to 0. So this goes to 0, this goes to 0. Eta 1 and eta 2 both go to 0. So this goes to 0, this goes to 0. So everything on the right hand side goes to 0. So let's open this limit and simplify this. So eventually what we have, limit h comma k tends to 0 comma 0, f of a plus h comma b plus k equals to, that was minus fab, I can write there f of a comma b like this, or this can be expressed like this, limit x tends to a, x comma y tends to a comma b, sorry, x comma y tends to a comma b, f of x comma y, right? Because I am taking I'm taking this as x, I'm taking this as x. So because h tends to 0, so x will tend to a and y will tend to b. And look at the definition of continuity. The limit at ab is same as the functional value of ab, and this shows that f is continuous at ab. And we have proved the first part. So we are satisfied with the definition. Differentiability implies continuity, which is a very important result that we have learned since class 12th, is still true for multivariable calculus. So differentiability implies continuity. Okay, but we also want to prove the partial derivative also exists at the point a comma b. Both the partial derivatives must exist if the function is differentiable. For the second part, I want to again prove that function is differentiable at a comma a. I will assume this and I will prove that both the partial derivatives exist. So what is the idea of the proof? This holds for every h and k which belongs to the neighborhood n of ab. I will take the point a plus h comma b. That means I am choosing k equals to 0. I may choose k to be 0 because that point will also belong to the neighborhood n of ab if this is belonging. So I will choose k to be 0. I will choose such a point of the form a plus h comma b that belongs to n of ab, and I will put k equals to 0 here, and let's see what happens. In this equation I will put k equals to 0. So we take k equals to 0 in again 1. K equals to 0 and h not equals to 0. H is some non-zero number in 1. Because if h is 0, then the increment will make no sense. It will just be 0. We get, so I am taking k equals to 0. So what is the left hand side? It was f of a plus h comma b plus k, but k is 0, it will remain b. F of a comma b equals to, it was ah. See, why I am taking h to be non-zero? Because if h is 0, no, this increment will be 0. Nothing to do. Plus bk. So bk will not be there. Bk will not be there because k is 0 and b is some finite number, right? So ah plus bk, that part vanishes. Eta 1h plus eta 2k. Because k is 0, that eta 2 will also be, that whole thing will be 0. So I will remain with this one on putting k equals to 0. See, h is common and h is not 0, you divide. That means f of a plus h comma b minus f of a comma b, it will become by h. I can divide by h because h is non-zero. What I am doing, I am taking h common, I am dividing it here. What I am remaining with, a plus eta 1. Am I clear up to here? Yes or no? Yes. Now we take the limit, taking limit as h tends to 0, and let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. What is the left hand side? Limit h tends to 0, f of a plus h comma b minus f of a comma b by h equals to, what is the right hand side if I take h tends to 0? Be quick. Yes, very good. This will go to 0 because k is already 0, and as h tends to 0 and k tends to 0, this eta 1 goes to 0 by definition. So this goes to 0. I will simply remain with a because a is a finite number. What is the left hand side? What is the left hand side? What is the left hand side? Be quick. We forgot the underscore, by the way. So this is the partial derivative of x at the point a comma b. Sorry, the partial derivative of f with respect to x at the point a comma b. Look at the definition. Please don't forget the definitions. Increment in a but no increment in b by h as h tends to 0. This is the exact definition of partial derivative of the function with respect to the variable x at the point a comma b. So you see, which exists because this is a finite number. Which is a finite number. So therefore, all in simple words, fx at a comma b exists. So similarly, using the same concept, I can find similarly the partial derivative will come equal to b. The partial derivative of the function at a comma b with respect to y will come as b. So again it exists, and that completes the proof of the theorem. Am I clear? So we are happy with our definition that we define, like the way how we define differentiability. If the function is differentiable, we wanted it to be continuous there, and the partial derivative should also exist there, which has been satisfied. That means we can accept that definition of differentiability. What important here, what important thing that this theorem gives you, so note, if f is differentiable at the point a comma b, then you try to understand my point, then the increment can be written in the form, try to understand my point, can be written in the form, which form? This form, a, but I already know the value of a. You see, what was the value of a I obtained? The value of a was partial derivative with respect to x at ab. So I already know the value of x, a. So a can be replaced like this. So a can be replaced like this. Hold on. So a can be replaced like this. So h times a. So a is what? Fx at the point a comma b plus k times b. So what was b? B can be replaced like this. So I know this constants a comma b. That is one thing that we have obtained. Eta 1 h plus eta 2 k, where eta 1 comma eta 2 goes to 0 as h comma k goes to 0, 0. Did you get my point? Why? How can I write this? Yes. So another thing to note is that the converse of this theorem is not at all true. That means even if the function is continuous at a comma b and both the partial derivatives exist at a comma b, still the function may not be differentiable at a comma b. So I will give you another note, or so the converse of the previous theorem is not true. That means suppose I have a function which is continuous at a comma b. Suppose I have a function which is continuous at a comma b. Both the partial derivatives exist at a comma b, and I'll show that still the function is not differentiable at a comma b. So keep that in mind. Just by proving that function is continuous and both the partial derivatives exist, you cannot conclude that the function is differentiable. Some of you might get confused. Like if both the partial derivatives exist, then the function can be expressed in this manner. But keep this in mind, I am assuming that the function is differentiable. If the function is differentiable, I can express this. I never told you that if the partial derivatives exist, then the function can be expressed in this manner. No, I told you this. So what my claim is, even if a function is continuous at a comma b and both the partial derivatives exist at a comma b, still then the function may not be differentiable at a comma b. But do not trust my words. I will give you a counter example. Okay, I will show a function is continuous at some point, both the partial derivatives exist at some point, at those points, but the function will not be differentiable at that point. Let's see which example will work. So consider this function. So in this subject you have got a lot of counter examples. Okay, We have done so many counter examples. If both the partial derivatives exist, the function may not be continuous. They will be continuous only if the partial derivatives are bounded. So keep these things in mind. So the function is like this. X comma y not equals to 0 comma 0, 0 otherwise. So consider this function. I will prove that this function is continuous at 0, 0. Both the partial derivatives exist at 0, 0. Let's prove it very quickly. So let epsilon greater than 0. Let's apply the definition of continuity. What was the definition? What I wanted for f to be continuous at 0, 0. This difference should be less than epsilon for some neighborhood of the point 0, 0. Let's see. This is nothing but f of x comma y, and this is nothing but 0. What is this? The function is x cube minus y cube by x square plus y square, and f0, 0 is 0. Now let's use the triangle inequality, everything else. So this is lesser equals to mod x cube. This will become plus only mod y cube, and this cannot be done. And this is always positive, no need to write the mod. And you already know what to do next. This is lesser equals to root over of x square plus y square. So let's do it. So what are we getting? Mod of fxy minus f of 0, 0 is lesser equals to, so it was mod x is lesser equals to x square root over of x square plus y square whole cube plus again y mod y, it is x square. This thing has already been taught, so I'm not repeating anything in detail. So if you take this common, this is 2 times x square plus y square, root means power half, 3 by 2 by x square plus y square whole to the power 1. So power gets subtracted, so x square plus y square whole to the power half, which is same as writing root over of x square plus y square. So this is less than epsilon if x square plus y square is less than epsilon by 2 minus epsilon square by 4. So or you can write this is less than epsilon by 2 whole square. So choose delta equals to epsilon by 2. Right? This is less than epsilon if this is less than epsilon by 2, squaring both sides. So for this circular neighborhood, the definition of continuity works. That means you may write thus for any epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta positive such that for all x comma y satisfying x square plus y square less than delta square implies mod of x comma y minus f of 0, 0 is less than epsilon, proving that f is continuous at 0, 0. So I have already taught you how to prove continuity. So the function is continuous. Now let's talk about the partial derivative at 0, 0. So let's talk about the partial derivative with respect to x. So we are about to find this limit h tends to 0, f of a plus h, a is 0 here, comma b is 0 here, minus f of 0, 0 by h. Let's see what is this limit. So limit h tends to 0. This is f of h comma 0, and f of 0, 0 is 0, no need to write, by h. I'll do it very quickly here. What is the function? Keep this in mind. The function was x cube minus y cube by x square plus y square. So h cube minus 0 cube, not to write, by h square minus h square plus 0 square, and I have by h, which on simplifying is nothing but 1, and limit will again be 1. Am I clear? Now let's see why the similarly the partial derivative at y will also be 1. Let's see why. No, minus 1 possibly. Therefore, the partial derivative at 0, 0 with respect to x is 1, and similarly you check the partial derivative of f with respect to y at 0, 0 will be minus 1. So both the partial derivative exists. So you see, I have such a function which is continuous at 0, 0. Both the partial derivatives exist at 0, 0. And I'll prove that the function is not differentiable at 0, 0. Let's see why. Okay. So I will prove that the function is not differentiable at 0, 0. We'll use a very interesting method. Let's see how. If f is differentiable at 0, 0, then this condition must hold, right? Then this condition must hold. F of 0 plus h, which is h, f of 0 plus and 0 plus k minus f of 0, 0. This increment can be written in the form a was partial derivative, right? So partial derivative is 1, so 1 into h minus 1 into k plus eta 1h plus eta 2k. Did you understand why did I write 1 and minus 1 here? Because I already said if the function is differentiable, a can be replaced by this number and b can be replaced by this number. Few minutes back I had told you as and where. Did you understand, right? So if the function is differentiable at 0, 0, if the function is differentiable at 0, 0, this condition must be satisfied. This condition must be satisfied, right? And I'll prove that this condition will not be satisfied. Let's see how. So, or if this is satisfied, then this must be satisfied. Let's apply the definition. What is f of h comma k? Assuming that h and k are not 0, it is h cube minus k cube by h square plus k square. F of 0, 0 is 0. This is h minus k plus eta 1h plus eta 2k. Again the same thing about eta 1 and eta 2. I am not writing again and again. So in simple words, if the function is differentiable at 0, 0, this condition should hold for any h comma k you choose. If the function is differentiable at 0, 0, then this condition must hold for any h comma k you choose. Obviously h comma k tends to 0, 0. Okay. So because I want this to be 0, the error should be 0. So what I'll do, I will choose this h and k. Put h equals to r cos theta and k equals to r sin theta. I wanted h comma k tends to 0, 0. When will h comma k tends to 0, 0? When r tends to 0. You see, when r tends to 0, whatever this be, h goes to 0 and k goes to 0. So I am choosing h comma k. I want h comma k to be 0, 0. I am taking h in this form, k in this form. So this goes to 0, 0 when r goes to 0, and theta can be anything. Theta is arbitrary. Whatever theta you choose, but if you choose such a r which tends to 0, and h comma k will go to 0, 0. Did you understand my point? Now keep this in mind. This will be very much essential and this will be very much essential. Put the value here. Put the values here. So therefore let's put here all the things here. Okay. What will I get? H cube. That means r cube cos cube theta minus k cube r cube sine cube theta by h square plus k square. H square is r square cos square theta, k square is r square sine square theta. Take r square common, cos square theta plus sine square theta, which is 1. So the denominator will be only r square. H is r cos theta, k is r sine theta plus eta 1 h, that means r cos h into plus eta 1 into h is r cos theta plus eta 2 into r sine theta. Let's see what happens. So if I take r cube common, try to understand my point. If I take r cube common, so 2r will cancel, only 1r will remain here. And you see r is common from every term. You again take this r common and cancel from here. Okay, these are very simple things. R cube we take common, 2r will cancel from the denominator, 1r will be remaining here. And you see every term on the right contains r, that again you take common and cancel here. So what I have, cos cube theta minus sin cube theta equals to cos theta minus sin theta plus eta 1 cos theta plus eta 2 sin theta. Okay, good enough. Okay, let's apply the formula for a cube minus b cube. It is a minus b in bracket a square plus b square plus ab. I hope you all know the formula for a cube minus b cube. So a cube minus b cube is what? A minus b in bracket a square plus b square. So cos square theta plus sin square theta is 1 plus ab plus cos theta sin theta. So left hand side is this. You send this to left again. So this will become minus cos theta minus sin theta. I hope you understood this. I'm sending this to the left hand side. So this whole thing is plus, come here and become minus, and the right hand side is this. Be very patient, okay? Otherwise you will make some mistakes. Be very patient. So cos theta minus sin theta is common. Let's take common. So cos theta minus sin theta, if I am taking common, I will remain with this minus 1, and 1 and 1 is getting cancelled. So into cos theta sin theta. And what am I getting? Eta 1 cos theta plus eta 2 sin theta. Am I clear up to here? So try to understand my point. I'll more take 2-3 minutes. If f is differentiable at 0, 0, this should hold, or this should hold, or when I'm putting h and k like this, so this should hold, right, as h comma k tends to 0, 0. Okay, so now my point is, let's now put h comma k tends to 0, 0 here. So when h comma k tends to 0, 0 here, which is equivalent to say r tends to 0. So let's see what happens. So what I have, okay, let me write down the last line again, otherwise it will be very difficult to understand. Cos theta minus sin theta into cos theta into sin theta. Okay, this was nothing but eta 1 cos theta plus eta 2 sin theta. So putting or taking limit r tends to 0. When we are taking the limit r tends to 0, r tends to 0 implies h tends to 0, k tends to 0. Because h was r cos theta and k was r sin theta. So as r goes to 0, h goes to 0 and k goes to 0. And when hk goes to 0, 0, this quantity and this quantity goes to 0, 0. So r tends to 0 implies h tends to 0, k tends to 0. and h tends to 0, k tends to 0 implies eta 1 and eta 2 goes to 0, 0. Right? As by the definition. And this left hand side is independent of r, so now to write limit. Therefore, cos theta minus sin theta into cos theta sin theta, this should be 0. That means eventually what I have obtained, for the function to be differentiable, this quantity should hold. Now theta was arbitrary. Now whatever theta you choose, that means this should be 0. No, not at all true. Suppose you choose theta equals to pi by 6, this will not be 0. That means we have led to a contradiction. We have led to a contradiction. Because if I choose, you see, theta was arbitrary. So for any theta, this should hold. If I'm choosing theta equals to pi by 4, then this will hold because this quantity will be 0. But it should be true for any value of theta. But if I choose theta equals to suppose 0 or suppose pi by 3, this will not be true. You can check by putting the values. So which is impossible for an arbitrary theta. So that means if I am assuming that the function is differentiable at 0, 0, I am leading to a contradiction. That means my assumption was wrong. That means f is not differentiable at 0, 0. So this is what we have. Okay, that even if the function is continuous at 0, 0, both the partial derivatives at 0, 0 exist. Okay, then the function may not be differentiable. Did you get my point?